Good morning, it's March 7th, and this is To My Liberal Friends. For years, the third rail of politics has been Social Security and Medicare. No politician wanted to touch them for fear of voter backlash, especially among senior citizens. The result has been that both programs are in fiscal danger, and nobody seems to have a politically viable solution. Democrats like to say that Republicans want to cut your Social Security and cancel your Medicare. Well, that's a false statement, and they know it when they say it. But they're hoping you will believe it and vote for them instead of the other side. It's a scare tactic that is both unnecessary and unwarranted. Now President Joe Biden has offered what he thinks will be the saving grace for Medicare. It does nothing to actually reform the program and bring some common sense to the billions upon billions of dollars wasted in Medicare. His plan is to simply raise the taxes on one group of people to pay for benefits for another group of people. It seems like everything he proposes is an attempt to buy votes for himself and his fellow Democrats, and what that means is he wants to engage in class warfare. Before we get to a solution, we should look at the problem a little closer. I know that we've all heard Democrats tout the healthcare systems that are prevalent in Europe. Of course, they never tell you of the high taxes people have to pay to their governments to run the healthcare system. They also never tell you about the long lines people must wait throughout Europe in order to see a specialist. You never hear them mention that private insurance companies are on the rise in Europe because of the problems with the government-run systems. And they certainly have not mentioned that the national healthcare system in England is on the brink of bankruptcy. Another major difference between the United States and other countries is that in Europe, they understand that death is part of life. Here in the United States, we believe that we're immortal, and we're willing to spend astronomical sums of money to extend life for even a very short period of time. What Europeans have come to understand is that those expenses will be limited. On average, a person living in the United States will spend somewhere near 75% of everything they will spend on healthcare in their life in the final 2 years. One report that I read indicates that in the final month of a person's life, the average cost is $17,845. And that's with low quality life. To put it in terms I think everyone can understand, I will use an analogy. When grandma's sick, in the hospital, the doctors are obligated to inform the family what her condition is and what procedures they can do to extend her life. Of course, the family tells doctors to do everything they can. But they're not doing this for grandma, but rather for themselves, so that when grandma finally passes away, they can say we did everything that we could. Now I'll use my own mother as an example. At age 91, she fell and broke her hip. Now we don't know if she actually fell or the hip just basically gave out. The doctors inserted a rod to stabilize the break, but informed the family that she would probably never get out of the bed because the bone was not sufficient to support the rod that they'd inserted. 2 days later, my mother suffered a heart attack. She opted to go into hospice care, knowing that she was at the end of her life. One family member insisted that she have other procedures done and do anything possible to extend her life, even though it would be low quality life. This type of activity goes on thousands of times across the nation as the elderly are in the hospital and family members are willing to have Medicare spend whatever necessary to extend their life. Maybe if we pass the bill on to the family, they might make some more prudent decisions. Moving back to President Biden's solution, it should be no surprise that he wants to raise someone's taxes. His plan would raise Medicare taxes to 5% from the current 3.8% for high earners, and then try to expand the reach of a tax so it applies to business income as well as investments, wages, and self-employment income. Under current law, for Medicare taxes, which come on top of regular income taxes, most employers and workers pay 1.45%, a payroll tax, for a total of 2.9%. Self-employed people pay both sides of that tax. Top earners, individuals making more than $200,000 and married couples making over $250,000, pay an additional 0.9% on the money above those thresholds for a total of 3.8%. In addition, a parallel 3.8% tax applies to net investment income for that same top group. Some professional service business owners have structured their finances to classify their income as profits that don't face the 3.8% tax instead of a self-employment income or wages. A White House document calls out that maneuver as a loophole that needs closing. But that's ironic. The President and First Lady Joe Biden used that technique, likely saving hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes on the income they earned from speeches and books after his term as vice president ended, and that's according to his own tax returns that they recently released. The only thing I would give Biden credit for is that he's finally admitted that Medicare is in trouble financially and needs some changes made. The problem in his solution is just raise taxes on one group of taxpayers. He fails to acknowledge the underlying problems. He fails to see that the reimbursement rates for doctors have been cut so many times that doctors can only afford a certain number of Medicare patients. I remember my sister telling me one time that when someone from her church congregation died, they would immediately look to see who the person's doctor was to find out if the doctor had room for another Medicare patient. There are solutions to both Medicare and Social Security, but they need to be bipartisan and not to be used as political wedges. I go back to the proposals by Senator Manchin and Romney about setting up independent commissions to look at all trust programs like Social Security and Medicare and to make some recommendations. Both need some major reforms, but it seems that Democrats want to use them as a political hammer for their own benefit. This has been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the podcast, recommend it to your friends, and please hit the subscribe button.